What is the creepiest thing that's happened to you personally that made you question reality? I'm curious if anyone else has had this happen. Years ago, my then wife and I would run into the same woman everywhere we went. And I mean everywhere we went. This went on for about a year. Go to the grocery store, she would be there shopping. Starbucks, yep, sitting right behind us. Walking around the mall, she would pass us walking in the other direction. Movie theater, she'd be behind us in line getting popcorn. The creepiest encounter was while driving on the freeway. My wife looked at the car next to us and screamed. Yep, it was her. She was always alone, never talked to us, and always made eye contact. She had a very unique appearance. She was very tall, very thin, and had very tight skin on her face. It was so unusual that we joked that we were being studied by an alien. It was some serious glitch in the Matrix stuff. Not me but my grandfather. My grandfather had been in WW2 and told us about when himself and a few other soldiers had been separated from his unit and we are trying to get to Normandy. They had gone through a clearing in a wooded area but had to drop when they heard something approaching. They were on their bellies in low grass when they saw 20 or 30 German soldiers running across the clearing, clearly in a state of panic. Then they just froze in mid-step. He said they resembled statues, and that some weren't even touching the ground, and that there was no noise whatsoever. Even the birds had gone silent. After a few seconds came a loud noise like metal scraping on concrete, and the frozen soldiers started to become blurry to the point at which they vanished without a trace. This had been reported by all of the soldiers that were present, and all were called to the War Office London after their return to the UK, where they were pressed on what they saw over the period of a few days, and we are taken back to the same spot in France shortly after the war had ended. Surprisingly, when they got there were other men sharing the same accommodation who reported similar occurrences in the exact same area. They were all taken to the woods and had to describe where and how the events took place. My granddad had said that the entire area was guarded heavily and that part of the ground was heavily excavated. The strangest thing of all the other, he said, was that there were hundreds of dogs in the area, just milling around for no apparent reason. They returned to the UK with a gag order ordering them never to speak about any of this. He went back to the same spot in France before he died in 1985 and said that the area had been covered with unmarked warehouses and was guarded by an unusually professional security company. He reckoned they were military. I've tried to find out more about this, but can't find any records of it. But I do remember one of the guys who he was with the day he used to come and visit sometimes and referred to the place as the Splintered Woods. I've related this before, but I'll repeat it again. I can think of a few things that happened in my first year of college. I used to live in an apartment kind of place on campus with 3 other people. We all had our separate bedrooms, but shared a living space. It was on the 7th floor. To give a better idea, once, I woke up at around 2 AM to find that my phone was automatically playing a song. I closed the app, but it happened 2 to 3 times again. I would have put this down to my phone being weird, but then one of my roommates told me the exact same thing happened to her as well. This wasn't all. A few days later, I woke up to a beeping sound coming from my phone, and when I checked, it was apparently a sound recording. The duration showed as 0.00 though, which meant that it shouldn't technically play at all. I deleted it immediately. Another time, my roommate and I were watching a movie and had stayed up till 3. It ended and she went to sleep. After a few minutes, she burst into my room and asked me what I was doing. I was confused because I was just lying in bed, reading. She said that she heard very weird noises from the window, which she assumed I was making to scare her or something. I went to her room and it sounded like heavy breathing / sighing. I told her it is just the wind. We opened the window and saw that the trees etc were completely still. I don't have the same phone, room, or roommates anymore, even though I still stay on campus. It was years ago, when I was about 17. I had gotten home from school and wasn't feeling well, so I spent the rest of the day just laying on the couch. By about 8 p.m. I was feeling even worse and decided I should just try to sleep whatever it is off. So I go to my room and get in bed and pass out pretty quickly. I don't know how long I was asleep, but I suddenly woke up in my pitch black bedroom and all I could think was I'm going to die right now. My body was so weak, the room was spinning, and my body felt like it was on fire. I look over to the edge of my bed, and sitting on the edge is my grandmother, who died just a few months ago. She pats my arm and says it's going to be okay. Just call for your dad. Try it. Call for your dad. So I start calling for him, and it felt like an eternity, but he finally burst through my door and asks what's wrong. I look over, and my grandmother is gone. After that, he gets me up and takes me to the ER where I have a fever of 106F, which explains a lot. I had to get a ton of fluids and a shot in my hip, but I eventually felt okay-ish. Her being there felt so real. It was so weird. I know logically she wasn't, but it felt so real. That sort of messed with me a little. I loved her dearly, and her death was very sudden. We kept her ashes in a nice urn in the house under a painting she had done herself. When I got home and passed by, I said thanks to her. I know it was the fever melting my brain and maybe some sleep paralysis, but it still made me question the afterlife and those sorts of things. I've told this before, but about 7 years ago I was at my mom's house. I live next door, and this white car pulls into the driveway. We weren't expecting anyone, so I assumed they were lost and needed directions, and went to the door. A white woman in her 50s or 60s got out, along with a 9 or 10-year-old black girl. Surprised me because I expected the kid to stay in the car if they just needed directions. I opened the door and the woman kind of nudges the girl towards me, both with big smiles on their faces. I said hi, what can I help you with? She asked if I was Baggy Raccoon, and I said yes. She told me they went to a neighbor's house looking for me, and they pointed her to our house. I just kind of stared at me expectantly, like I was supposed to know the girl and be happy to see her. When I didn't react, the woman told me they were here to see the dentist. No dentists here. Small ranch style house in a fairly rural neighborhood. No dentists here. Not anywhere near us. The woman and the girl just kept smiling. They didn't look confused. They just kept saying, "Are you sure?" Finally they left, and later I asked the neighbor who directed them to our house, and she said she never told the woman my name, that the woman asked for me specifically. It's always kind of haunted me. I really feel like I was supposed to know that girl. Like, if I was a guy, this would be someone trying to introduce me to a kid I didn't know I had. I honestly started wondering if I was nuts and had given up a child for adoption. It was that strange of a feeling. My mom firmly believes the girl will come back someday to tell me what it was about, and I think about it frequently. Drives me insane to wonder what they really wanted. When I was 12 or so and still living at my parents' house, I woke up in the middle of the night to pee. I got to the bathroom and heard what did like a party going on downstairs. Laughter, music, the sound of glasses being knocked together for a toast, the whole shebang. I thought it was weird that my parents had friends over so late and hadn't told me, but I decided to go and see who was there. Opened the door to the kitchen and the entire downstairs was completely dark and silent, not even a TV on. I was thoroughly confused, but the strangeness of the situation didn't really register, so I never told anyone. Years and years later I mentioned this to my dad, and he said he had heard them too. Turns out there used to be a small public bar in their home, which is over 150 years old. I guess some of the patrons decided to hang out for eternity.